Hello, I'm going to tell a story by Mark Twain, published in 1876. Punch, Brothers, Punch. Please listen to the following lines to see if you find in them anything harmful. Conductor, when you receive a fare, punch in the presence of the passenger. A blue trip slip for an 8-cent fare, a buff trip slip for a 6-cent fare, a pink trip slip for a 3-cent fare. Punch in the presence of the passenger. And the chorus. Punch, brothers, punch with care. Punch in the presence of the passenger. I ran across these jingling rhymes in the newspaper a while ago and read them a few times. They sound innocent enough, but they instantly took entire possession of me. All through breakfast, they went waltzing through my brain, and when I had finished, I couldn't tell whether I had eaten anything or not. I had carefully laid out my day's work the night before. Thrilling tragedy in the novel which I'm writing. I went to my den to begin my deed of blood. I picked up my pen, but all I could write was punch in the presence of the passenger. I fought hard for an hour, but it was useless. My head kept humming a blue trip slip for an 8-cent fare, a buff trip slip for a 6-cent fare, and so on, without peace or respite. The day's work was ruined. I could see that plainly enough. I gave up and drifted downtown and discovered that my feet were keeping time to that relentless jingle. When I could stand it no longer, I altered my step, but it did no good. Those rhymes adapted themselves to my new step and went right on harassing me just as before. I returned home and suffered all afternoon, suffered all through dinner, suffered and cried and jingled all through the evening, went to bed and jingled right along, got up at midnight and tried to read, but the only thing visible upon the page was punch in the presence of the passenger. By sunrise, I was out of my mind. 2 days later, on Saturday morning, I arose, a tottering wreck, and went forth to meet with a valued friend, the Reverend. We had made plans for a walk to the Talcott Tower, 10 miles away. He stared at me, but asked no questions. We started. The Reverend talked and talked, as is his wont. I said nothing. I heard nothing. At the end of the mile, the Reverend said, "Are you sick? I never saw a man look so haggard and worn and absent-minded. Say something." Drearily, without enthusiasm, I said, "Punch, brothers, punch with care. Punch in the presence of the passenger." My friend looked perplexed. "I do not get your drift. I never heard anything that sounded so pathetic. What is—" But I heard no more. I was already far away with my pitiful blue trip slip for an 8-cent fare, a buff trip slip for a 6-cent fare, a pink trip slip for a 3-cent fare, punch in the presence of the passenger. I do not know what occurred during the other 9 miles. However, when we reached the tower, the Reverend put his hand on my shoulder and shouted, "Wake up, wake up! Don't sleep all day. Here we are at the tower. I've talked myself deaf and dumb and never got a response. Just look at this magnificent autumn landscape. What do you say to this?" I sighed wearily and murmured, "A buff trip slip for a 6-cent fare, a pink trip slip for a 3-cent fare, punch in the presence of the passenger." The Reverend stood there, very grave and full of concern. Then he said, "There's something about this that I cannot understand. Those are the same words you said before. There seems to be nothing in them, and yet they nearly break my heart when you say them. How do they go?" I began at the beginning and repeated all the lines. My friend's face lit up with interest. "What a captivating jingle! It's almost music the way it flows along so nicely. I've nearly caught the rhymes myself. Say them over just once more, then I'll have them for sure." I said them over. Then the Reverend said them. He made one little mistake, which I corrected. The next time, and the next, he got them right. Now a great burden seemed to tumble from my shoulders. That torturing jingle departed from my brain, and a grateful sense of rest and peace descended upon me. As we walked homeward, my voice found blessed speech once more, and the pent-up talk of many hours began to gush and flow. It flowed on jubilantly to the end of our walk. As my friend and I were parting, I said, "Haven't we had a royal good time? But you haven't said a word for 2 hours. Come, out with something." The Reverend turned a lackluster eye upon me, drew a deep sigh, and said, without animation, "Punch, brothers, punch with care, punch in the presence of the passenger." A pang shot through me as I said to myself, "Poor fellow, now he has it." I did not see the Reverend for 3 days after that. Then on Tuesday evening, he staggered into my presence and sank dejectedly into a chair. He lifted his faded eyes to my face and said, "Oh, it was a ruinous investment that I made in those heartless rhymes. They have ridden me like a nightmare, day and night, hour after hour, to this very moment. Since I saw you, I have suffered nothing but torment." On Saturday evening, I received a telegram and took the night train to Boston. The occasion was the death of a valued old friend who had requested that I should preach the sermon at his funeral. I took my seat on the train and set myself to framing the discourse. But I never got beyond the opening paragraph. For as soon as the train started, the wheels began their clack, 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 and right away, those odious rhymes adjusted themselves to that rhythm. For an hour, I sat there and set one syllable of those rhymes to every distinct clack of the wheels. It was exhausting. I thought I would go mad if I sat there any longer. So I undressed and went to bed. I stretched out on my berth, and, well, you know the result. The thing went right along, just the same. Clack, 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 a blue trip slip. Clack, 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 for a 8-cent fare. Clack, 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 a buff trip slip. Clack, 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 for a 6-cent fare. And so on, and so on. Not a single wink of sleep. I was almost a lunatic when I got to Boston. Don't ask me about the funeral. I did the best I could. But every solemn sentence was tangled with "Punch, brothers, punch with care, punch in the presence of the passenger." And the most distressing thing was that my delivery dropped into the undulating rhythm of those pulsing rhymes. I could actually catch absent-minded people nodding in time with their heads. Before I was through, the whole assembly was bobbing their heads in unison, undertaker, mourners, and all. As soon as I had finished, I hurried to the anteroom, almost in a frenzy. Of course, it would be my luck to find there the aged aunt of the deceased. She had arrived from Springfield too late to get into the church. Overcome with sorrow, she began to sob, "Oh, he is gone, and I did not see him before he died." "Yes," I said, he is gone. "Oh, will this suffering never cease?" She looked at me. You loved him then? Oh, you loved him too. I looked at her. Loved him? Loved who? Why, my poor George, my poor nephew. Oh, him. Oh, yes, yes, certainly, certainly. Punch, brothers. Oh, this misery will kill me. She said, bless you, sir, for those sweet words. I too suffer in this dear loss. Tell me, were you present during his last moments? Yes, Whose last moments? His, the dear departed's. Oh, yes, I suppose so. I think so. I don't know. Oh, yes, certainly. I was there. She continued, oh, what a privilege, what a precious privilege. And his last words, tell me his last words. What did he say? He said, oh, my head, my head. He said, he never said anything but punch in the presence of the passenger. Oh, leave me, madam, in the name of all that is generous. Leave me to my madness, my misery, my despair. When the Reverend finished his sorry story, his hopeless eyes rested upon mine, and then he once again murmured that relentless jingle. How did I save him from the asylum? I took him to a neighboring university and made him discharge the burden of his persecuting rhymes into the eager ears of the unsuspecting students. How is it with them now? The result is too sad to tell. Why did I tell you this story? It was for a worthy, indeed a noble purpose. It was to warn all of you. If you should ever come across those merciless rhymes, avoid them. Avoid them as you would a pestilence.